Hello and welcome in. It's a Sunday rivalry week edition of Always College Football. To say rivalry week before you've even really had your coffee, feel pretty good about that accomplishment. Check one for difficult things to say. I'm your host, Greg McElroy. Appreciate y'all being with us. Like, rate, subscribe, all the same old stuff. We appreciate you as always. Really an exciting week of college football starting on Thursday. And I'll just start with a bit of negativity, but maybe in a positive way. Interpret it as you will. We need more college football games on Thursday. I understand it's Thanksgiving. I understand the NFL rules the roost, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching Memphis and Tulane far more than I enjoyed watching the Green Bay Packers and the Miami Dolphins. The NFL product is not nearly as exciting as ours, so I would go toe-to-toe with the NFL and put more games on Thursday. That being said, Tulane falls at the hands of Memphis. Memphis finally realizing their potential for the first time, it feels like, in forever. Pretty good performance from both sides of the ball for Memphis. I thought this would be a game that Memphis could absolutely get. They're now 10-2. Unfortunately, that loss that they suffered earlier to Navy is what's going to keep them out, more than likely. Memphis also, I believe, lost to UT San Antonio. It's going to keep them out, but I still think, man, I wish Memphis would have had a chance, because I think in the playoff, they have the talent and the personnel to make, I think, things difficult. Doesn't matter. Will they overtake Boise? Probably not. But Tulane now has to go to Army for the AAC championship next week. The winner needing some help, but very much alive in the college football playoff. Friday is where things really started to get going for us, right? Boise takes care of Oregon State. Ashton Jeanty, 226 yards in the performance. Just a cool 37 carry day. No problem whatsoever. Ashton Jeanty now is about 360 yards away from being in a position to challenge for the best rushing year of all time from a college running back. So will he get there next week? Probably not. I don't think UNLV is going to allow him to run for 350. If he does, then the Heisman Trophy should and likely will be traveling to Boise along with Ashton Jeanty. But I think 360 is a lot. Either way, tremendous performance. They now lock up that, I think, playoff game for them. I mean, UNLV, based on how the American now with Tulane falling, can the American really get back in the mix potentially? I don't know. But UNLV ranked last week against Boise. They now on a collision course next week for the Mountain West Championship. That game will be Friday night, and winner might be in, and that includes UNLV. So we shall see. The Egg Bowl followed that one. Well, I will say this about the Egg Bowl. It didn't feel like it was a convincing victory. I felt like Mississippi State battled. I think they did some good things. Felt like Van Buren, who the quarterback for Mississippi State, and things are going to be good for Mississippi State, I think, on offense here moving forward. Like Jeff Levy's got his guy. I think they have a decent contingent of weapons. You look at kind of where they're at, Coleman being the main target in this game, going for about $120. Pretty good performance from him. Feels like Mississippi State's getting to a position where they can make things a little difficult for Ole Miss down the stretch, but not yet, not this year. Jackson Dart and company, Ulysses Bentley ripping off a couple long runs. Ulysses Bentley, people have been clamoring, why is he not getting opportunities? He gets 20 carries in this one, and he makes the most of those 20 carries, going for nearly $140. So very impressive performance from Ole Miss running the football in what was a low-scoring Egg Bowl game. Colorado made quick work of Oklahoma State on Friday as well. Shedeur Sanders, a ridiculous 440-yard performance, 5-touchdown performance through the air. But all the headlines in this one seemingly are centering around Travis Hunter. Another, 3-touchdown interception performance. The guy's had a ridiculously successful season. He's an amazing wide receiver. He's a finalist for the Biletnikoff. We'll see where things go as far as the Heisman is concerned. I have a vote. I don't cast my vote until Sunday after championship week. I am not necessarily one that likes to the people that vote before championship week to keep things fair. I think what you do on the biggest possible stage is a big factor on being the most outstanding player in college football. So I will not vote until 7 days from today. But I can promise you this, on the short list, on the very, very short list, Travis Hunter is absolutely under consideration alongside several others. Then the big one at night on Friday night was Georgia Tech. And what a thrilling football game. Just a thrilling football game. Haynes King and Georgia Tech. I know they came up short in the performance in their upset bid. But anybody that watched that game saw the emotion on the face of Brent Key. His alma mater is Georgia Tech. He's the head coach of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Seeing the emotion on his face and being consoled by his friend and colleague Kirby Smart, a guy that they've worked together in the past on the Alabama staff. That one was a heart-wrenching performance if you are Georgia Tech, and it really came down to one play. It was a 3rd and 1. Haynes King had played a flawless football game for the most part. 3rd and 1, looked like Haynes King had gotten the first down. Dan Jackson, safety for Georgia, comes in, knocks the ball out. As a result, Georgia recovers, and they only have to go a pretty short field to be able to have the game-tying score at that point. Man alive. Hanging onto the football. Now, a lot of things. Do I think it was targeting? Perhaps. Did Dan Jackson lead with the crown of the helmet? Yes, but was contact initiated with the crown of the helmet? I don't know. So I do think targeting review would have been appropriate there. But at the same time, that was the play that made the Yellow Jackets had played so well offensively, but that was the play that had to be made by Georgia to give them life and to give them an opportunity to go down and tie the game. So tremendous credit to Georgia for being resilient and tremendous credit for them continuing to battle there in the final 5 minutes of the game, because that thing could have gotten sideways in favor of Georgia Tech, and Georgia just continued to punch and punch and punch, and they eventually win it in 8 overtimes. One other thing, too, I think Brent Key will probably be kicking himself. Just looking at how this whole thing went and looking at how they had the opportunity earlier in the game to go for 2 and end the game on their terms, their offense on the field. Had they not gotten it, so be it. You threw your punch. But the longer that game went, the more likely it was going to end up in Georgia's favor, in my opinion. Now, Brent Key might be thinking about it differently, thinking we have a mobile quarterback, and that quarterback's legs give us an advantage when the field condenses. That's not untrue, but I also think, too, I know that Georgia's got more depth. I know Georgia has more top-end talent, and the longer that game went, the more it would likely benefit the Bulldogs. So a tremendous game, outstanding performance, tons of respect on both sides given to both Georgia and Georgia Tech in the outcome. We'll go next to Michigan, Ohio State, which kicked off Saturday. Wow. How does this happen? It's almost unthinkable. I cannot comprehend what it was that I was watching when this game was going on. And I was in and out of the booth and having to go to the field and all these things. So I did not get to just sit down, put my seatbelt on, and watch this game from start to finish for 3.5 hours. But what I did see, and I'll review the tape today, what I did see was a complete refusal from Ohio State's coaching staff to acknowledge the strength of Michigan's team. And that, to me, is really, really eye-opening. Because I know that what needs to happen is, while you might have the superior roster, you might have the superior team. There is no denying that Ohio State is better than Michigan this season. And if they played that game 100 times, I don't know how many times Ohio State would win. Not sure. All that matters is they played that one, and Ohio State continued to just run. They did not have hardly any success running the football up the middle of the defense. And I just don't understand why they continued to commit to it. And that's, I think, what's so amazing to me, because everybody who, whether they watch college football religiously on a week-to-week basis, or they watch 8 to 12 hours every Saturday, or if they just pop in and out for big moments. Hey, I watched this game. I'm an NFL fan, but I watched this game. I watched it. Everybody knows, whether you are deep in the weeds or if you're a casual fan, that Michigan's strength is their defensive tackles. Why would Ohio State, with a banged-up offensive line that is without 2 opening day starters at center and at left tackle, Why would they lean on the run game as much as they did? And we all also know that a big moment in the game, and we said this in the previews, the only way I think Ohio State can lose this game is if they screw it up. And a couple interceptions that were bad interceptions were really the kind of undoing for this Ohio State football team. You could sense that they got tight. You also could sense that things were just not really, they were not operating with any efficiency. And Michigan deserves immense credit for forcing the game to be played on their terms. Great coaches acknowledge the opponent's strength. They try to deviate from that opponent's strength, and they try to control the terms of the game. This game was played on Michigan's terms, not on Ohio State's terms. And that's something Ryan Day is going to have to live with for a very long time. I don't feel like they get enough targets in the direction of Jeremiah Smith. He did have the touchdown, of course, but he didn't get enough looks. I mean, Michigan's without their best corner. Their other corners have been challenged at times this year. And I just did not love the plan from Ohio State whatsoever. I think it played right into the strength of the Michigan team. And I think as a result, the longer the game went when it was still in doubt, the tighter Ohio State got on their sideline. I think being at home in an environment like this was probably working against the Buckeyes. And as a result, they've now dropped 4 in a row to the Michigan Wolverines. It's just an unthinkable loss and an unspeakable loss for Ryan Day. Feel terrible for him, feel terrible for the Ohio State players, but man, you only have yourself to blame with the way they tried to attack this defense. Texas and Texas A&M, this game was at night. Speaking of having a tough time attacking the opponent's defense, Texas A&M could do nothing against this Texas defense, excuse me. Texas A&M, if you look at their performances against top-level defenses, whether it's Notre Dame or South Carolina and then Texas here in the finale of the regular season, they really hadn't moved the ball with a lot of consistency against any of those 3 teams. Other teams that they played with the substandard defense, sure, yeah, A&M found yards, A&M found points. That wasn't really the case against the Texas Longhorns. A&M scores just 7 points in the game, those 7 points coming on a pick 6 that was a terrible throw and interception. But either way, Texas gets an early lead. Arch Manning, by the way, in the mix there with the opening touchdown. But I also look at this, and Texas kind of knew that there was going to be very little that A&M could do offensively. I think Texas knew going into this game they were going to be a boa constrictor, and there was going to be very little if they just stayed on top of the wide receivers. They knew they could win along the lines of scrimmage because Texas A&M's offensive line's been a little up and down, and Marcel Reed would probably leave some plays on the field. And that's exactly what transpired in this game. Now, Marcel Reed had moments in this game, had a run or two that were pretty special, but there wasn't nearly enough. And there was not a moment, at least I think in the final 3 quarters, where I felt like A&M was going to be able to do anything to flip the script and get back into this game. It was one of those that was a demoralizing loss for the Aggies, but it was exactly what you wanted to see if you are a Texas fan. Just a physical, running the football great, stopping the run great, not allowing anything over your head. And it was just a well-executed effort on both sides of the ball for Texas. Now, a couple things. I think Quinn Ewers, he ran the ball pretty well. That was encouraging. But I still think the passing game for Texas, man, is just a little bit inconsistent for me. And they're going to need to find it next week against Georgia because I think Georgia will probably sell out against the run. Penn State, the only thing to really take away from this one is that Maryland scored first. That was pretty much it. Penn State reels off 44 unanswered points. And Tyler Warren continues to emphasize to everybody that him and Gunnar Helm at Texas, 2 best tight ends in the country. I don't know exactly where it's going to go as far as the Mackey Award, but I'd be surprised if Tyler Warren doesn't win it. He's been terrific all year. Penn State, not only do they punch their ticket to the playoff, but they also now punch their ticket to the Big Ten title because of Ohio State's second loss in the conference. So Ohio State out of next week's action. Penn State gets a crack at Oregon now and potentially that first round bye. Notre Dame, 49 points scored, a couple pick 6s. Mayava, we told you last week that Mayava is a guy that's not afraid to take some chances with the football, not afraid to throw it into some traffic. And as a result, when he turns it over, SC probably not going to be very successful. He did a couple times, and it results in 14 points for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. A couple other things in this game. Notre Dame's rushing attack continues to be really impressive. Very impressed with what they're doing offensively with not just Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, but Riley Leonard's contributions on the ground as well. Am I concerned a little bit about Notre Dame's defense in the performance? There is part of me that watches this and acknowledges that SC had, I think, 7 yards of play, had 557 yards of offense. That does concern me. I'm not going to lie. SC, who's a team that doesn't really run the ball with great effectiveness to begin with, they rush for 197 yards in the game. They go for 7 yards per carry. So is that concerning? Perhaps. I mean, this is the best skilled group of weapons that Notre Dame has faced this year. I think you can make a case that maybe Louisville is there as well. But SC and Louisville comparable as far as talent on the perimeter and talent at quarterback. This was a little bit eye-opening because this has been a boa constrictor defense for the Irish all season long, but against the two teams that have good personnel on the perimeter and have weapons, Louisville and SC, they gave up a lot of yardage. Now, they clamped down and forced turnovers, and they clamped down when the field condensed, which is admirable. But in a playoff setting, am I a little more concerned as a result? Maybe just ever so slightly. I also didn't see a lot of pass rush from Notre Dame either. So that'll be something that we'll watch a little bit more closely because you're going to need that pass rush in the playoff when playing against some of these quality teams. The 6th-ranked Miami Hurricanes fell to the Syracuse Orange. Was this not the strangest Miami game of the year? And there have been a bunch of them, by the way. There have been a bunch of chaotic and unique outcomes that Miami's experienced. They've been in dogfights and pulled away late. They've survived Hail Mary attempts. There have been a lot of strange things that have bounced in Miami's favor at times this year. They're up 21-0, and apparently they're in cruise control. I mean, you think everything's going to be great. You're thinking this is finally going to be the 60-minute performance I've been begging for from Miami this year. And then, boom, the wheels fall off. They give up in the span of about 2 quarters. They give up 35 points. All of a sudden, Miami is now in a deficit and can't really do a whole lot. They end up falling 42-38. Kyle McCord, 380 yards in the performance, continuing to take advantage of a Miami defense that has had a bunch of challenges here in the second half of the season. That group, from a talent standpoint, is better than where they are from a performance standpoint. It's hard to wrap your head around, but I think Miami's got a whole host of issues and things they need to iron out on that side of the ball. If they get in, it would, one, I don't think it's a guarantee, but two, I think if Miami gets in, they're going to have a really, really hard time if they have to go play in a setting that is not advantageous to scoring points, because this is not a team that can just grind it out right now. But 10-2 for Miami, a good year, but a disappointing finish as they now will not play in the ACC championship game because of their loss. Clemson will hop in the driver's seat, who has just one loss in the ACC. Tennessee, after a slow start, flips the script on Vanderbilt and charges down the stretch. Dylan Sampson, we had referenced earlier Ashton Jeanty as a Heisman Trophy contender. We had also referenced what we've seen from Travis Hunter as a Heisman Trophy contender. I'm just telling you, Dylan Sampson needs to be in consideration for some. I don't think he's going to have enough support, but as far as how good he's been this year, and at times, while Nico Iamaleava, 4 touchdowns in this game, there have been times when Dylan Sampson's been by far their best weapon offensively for the Tennessee Volunteers. He goes for $178 in this game. And Nico Iamaleava, told you a second ago, 4 touchdowns in the performance. The passing game starting to get going, and the defense for Tennessee has always been good. And even though they had that terrible first quarter where they gave up 17 points, they hold them to just 6 down the stretch. So an impressive bounce back from Tennessee there in the final 3 quarters after a bit of a slow start. SMU crushes Cal. Thought this game had a chance to be maybe a little competitive. I think Cal's really underrated, but I also think SMU is really underrated as well. Jennings goes for 225. They didn't run the ball with as much efficiency as one would like in this game. They really, I thought, would have maybe a little more balance in this performance, but defensively, SMU painfully underrated. and they hold Cal to just 6 points. Indiana revs their engine 66-0 over Purdue. The amount of time I spent reading that is probably too much time on this game. Purdue, by the way, against 5 playoff teams that they've faced this year, they scored 17 points against 5 playoff teams. You get blanked again by their in-state rival, Indiana. South Carolina, one of the hottest teams in the country, coming in having ridden a 6-game winning streak, beat Clemson 17-14. They're in Death Valley, 10 fourth-quarter points. And Lenora Sellers has really come to life here in the latter part of the season, right? At times for him early, he had the ankle injury and was a little bit up and down. You could tell that his confidence at times was maybe a little bit wavering. If he got off to a fast start, he was going to be a handful all game. But if he got off to a slow start, it took him a little while to kind of bounce back and create some of that offensive momentum. He gets off to a somewhat of a slow start, but they make the plays down the stretch. Just an incredible performance. And if you watch the game-winning touchdown for South Carolina and how he just runs around and buys time, you look at the stat sheet and you think, okay, 16, 166 and a couple touchdowns. Yeah, that's amazing. That's on the ground. But in order to gain those 166 yards, he probably runs for 320. And the guy is like out and around, and it's like, I mean, he's got to be exhausted after the game. But another really impressive performance for South Carolina. I think their bid to make the college football playoff is probably going to come up short, but you have to think about a couple that got away, whether it was against Alabama or against LSU. One of those goes in favor of the Gamecocks. They're probably punching their ticket to the postseason in the 12-team playoff. Alabama on the 300-yard performance, 350-yard performance from Jalen Milroe, 250 through the air, 150 on the ground, and Alabama continues to write home the narrative. If Jalen Milroe plays well, they play well. If he doesn't play well, they struggle. He played well yesterday, even though he had some very critical errors. He had 3 turnovers in the game, 2 fumbles and an interception. Ryan Williams on the opening possession for Alabama fumbles the ball. So for Alabama to be minus 3 in turnovers, and there was a late turnover for Auburn and mop-up duty, so minus 3 in regulation minutes where the game actually was still in doubt, and to still have a comfortable lead is pretty impressive. I thought Alabama's defense was phenomenal. Kane Womack and that group, they continue to do a really, really nice job. In the last 5 or 6 games, Alabama is giving up defensively by like 8 or 9 or 10 points a game. So that group has been playing excellent. Even against Oklahoma, you look at the score, 24. Well, one of Oklahoma's drives started at the 14-yard line, and the other was a pick 6. They really give up 10 points in the game in many ways last week against Oklahoma. Arizona State, one of the hottest teams going right now. They are now going to the Big 12 title game after a resounding and dominant performance, 49-7 over their in-state rival, the Arizona Wildcats. Cam Scatterbo goes for $180 and 3 touchdowns. Levitt, just a super precise and efficient performance. Very impressed by what I've seen from that group. And then Tyson, their outstanding wide receiver, their go-to guy in the passing game. When the 3-headed monster of Levitt, Scatterbo, and Tyson have a nice day, you know they're going to be a very difficult team to beat. Iowa State, in a game, if you are a fan of quarterback play, probably not the one for you. Iowa State and Kansas State was not very pretty for the Cyclones or for the Wildcats. Avery Johnson and Rocco Becht combined to complete 25 passes on 65 attempts. Not great. But you look at the short field that Iowa State was able to cash in on multiple times. That was really what gave them the win. And they now will head to Dallas next week as a Big 12 championship contender, and a real chance to make the college football playoff would be a tremendous achievement for Matt Campbell and his team. BYU beats Houston, but it was not a flawless performance by any stretch. Jake Retzlaff just 8 of 19 in the game. They muffed a punt. They had fumbles. Like, they had a few mistakes in this game, and yet they still survived. So an impressive 10-2 season for Kalani Sitake. Will come up short as far as college football playoff is concerned, but a lot to feel good about with the trajectory of that program and some of the young players that will be coming back and playing pivotal roles for the Cougs. Mizzou and Arkansas. Mizzou handles Arkansas. Late touchdown by Brady Cook. They got 9-3. Here is Missouri, and Arkansas 6-6. I think everything's fine for Sam Pittman, but either way, a disappointing season for the Hogs and a solid season for Missouri, cashing in on the preseason promise of the top 10 ranking. It hasn't been good against quality competition, to be honest with you. They struggled at times, Missouri has, but they did end up winning the games they were supposed to win. They finished 9-3, not in the playoff, but still a solid top 25 season for Eli Drinkwitz. UNLV gets the win over Nevada, and then Illinois took care of Northwestern. One other thing, a big topic here in the last couple days has been flag planting. We might talk about this a little more tomorrow in our takeaways show, but the flag planting thing, it just doesn't bother me. Am I maybe a little bit too brash? Like, okay, respect your opponent, respect the opposition, respect the logo, all that stuff I think is to be acknowledged. And I don't blame teams for defending the logo by any stretch. But if a team beats me and they decide to plant their flag, I'm just not going to be that offended. It's personal opinion. Did some of the antics by some teams go over the top? Absolutely. And what happened at the end of the Ohio State-Michigan game was an embarrassing scene for all. But I don't know. As far as the flag planting, we saw it in how many different places, whether it was Florida State, Ohio State, Michigan, a handful of other spots as well. It's just not that uncommon. It just doesn't really bother me as much as it seemingly has bothered other people. So maybe that's kind of a lame take, and I apologize for it, but that's the take I have on that. If you want more takes, come back tomorrow. We're going to have a full 10 takeaway show for you here on Always College Football. Some of the takeaways from this past weekend, the potential fallout from the results of this past weekend. I would imagine it was a tough night for Ryan Day, and I can't imagine he got a very restful sleep. I also think we need to set the stage for what's coming up in the College Football Playoff Committee rankings on Tuesday. I think it's probably the most anticipated College Football Playoff ranking show ever, especially knowing where is Miami going to fall. All these other things that we need to probably look at. How far does Ohio State fall? All these other things that could factor in as far as who gets in and who doesn't here, because we are just 1 week away from Selection Day, ladies and gentlemen. So we are getting there very, very quickly, and we have a lot of exciting conference championship games to preview, and we'll do that on Thursday's show. For all of us here at Always College Football, from Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. Check back with us tomorrow for a slightly deeper dive into this past weekend's performances. For all of us, we hope you have a tremendous Sunday, and remember, it's always college football.
Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.